We are going to talk here about what's going on with the US basketball team. We planned this yesterday, Owen. In a masterpiece of timing, they were in absolute crisis because they'd lost back-to-back games against two sides who I don't know if they're any good or not, because I don't know anything about international basketball. And then, lo and behold, they're back. Are they, though?
They beat Argentina last night to ruin the narrative on this piece completely. 108 to 80 points winners. They're playing in Las Vegas at the moment. This is really interesting. So, you obviously have become very familiar with the Daily Telegraph and the Guardian and everybody in England and their coverage of the England team and how melodramatic it can be at times. One thing I don't think we quite appreciate is what the American media is like when one of their great teams is struggling or on the precipice of something great, because I guess we don't interact with them all that often, where the English thing is very much in our face, and the American nationalism on a sporting level maybe isn't the same, unless of course people are booing people who take the knee maybe before NFL games. But anyway, Brian Windhorst for ESPN yesterday in his column about the two defeats. Team USA might indeed win its 4th consecutive Olympic gold medal next month in Tokyo, but if the Americans do, it will be a story of overcoming adversity. This is the narrative that has suddenly been created as a result of losing two friendlies before the Olympics in Tokyo. As you say, they played Australia, bloody good team, stacked with NBA talent. Nigeria, not as stacked as Australia are with top-class NBA talent, but still a number of NBA stars. Two teams that have played quite a lot over the last couple of years have built up better team cohesion than the USA have. But naturally, because they are Nigeria and Australia, this is absolutely unacceptable, because it is unacceptable for the United States of America to lose against anybody in basketball since the professionals were allowed to play basketball with the United States of America in the early 90s. They are still 4-1 on favourites to win the gold medal, but the pressure is certainly simmering up just a little bit. There was a smattering of boos in Vegas a couple of nights ago after that defeat to Argentina. They were 10 points up in the second half and dropped back to lose that game. So there are certain concerns. There's a number of different things that feed into this concern. First of all, they finished 7th at the 2019 World Cup, which was their worst ever finish at a major international tournament by a team from the United States. So that's the base they're coming from, and then they have those two defeats. So there's a little bit of concern. There's also a little bit of tetchiness creeping in. Greg Popovich is the head coach of the United States at the moment, and here's a little snippet of his press conference after the Australia defeat.
I mean, I know that Coach has been preaching this about how much better the rest of the world has gotten over the years. But in this being your first Team USA experience in the Olympics and that sort of thing, what's it like for you to having watched your colleagues go through some of these tournaments and blow these teams out, and now you are kind of experiencing a much different, much closer, tougher experience?
Let me also answer that question. You know, you asked the same sort of question, the same family of question last time, where you assume things that are not true. You just mentioned, you know, blowing these teams out. That's never happened. So I don't know where you get that. So, can I finish? Can I finish? Can I finish my statement? Can I finish my statement? When you talk, are you going to let me finish my statement or not? So you'll be quiet now while I talk, and then I'll listen to you. When you make statements about in the past just blowing out these other teams, number one, you give no respect to the other teams. And I talked to you last time about the same thing. We've had very close games against 4 or 5 countries in all these tournaments. So the good teams do not get blown out. There are certain games that might happen in one of the tournaments, in the World Championship, the Olympics, where somebody gets blown out. But in general, nobody's blowing anybody out for the good teams. So when you make a statement like that, it's like you assume that's what's going on. And that's incorrect.
That's Greg Popovich, not a happy camper being challenged. Like, I mean, maybe that's the sort of assumption we have of a team like this who have been so unbelievably successful, with the exception of 2004, have won every gold medal at the Olympics since the pros were allowed to play. But even just going back to Rio and some of their results in the group stages in Rio, they started off by properly blowing out China 119-62, properly blowing out Venezuela 113-69. But once they were actually up against good opposition, they weren't amazing at the Rio Olympics at times. They'd beaten Australia by 10 points in another group game. They'd beaten Serbia by just 3 points in another group game. Serbia, second favourites, by the way, going into this year's tournament. And then they beat France by only 3 points. So they had 3 very close-run matches in the group stages at the Rio Olympic Games. But in the final, they beat Serbia by 30 points when it really mattered. So I think that is the key point here. Once these American players actually decide to show up and decide to actually take things seriously, the gold medal should be a foregone conclusion. And I would say that the reaction to them not winning gold would be akin to the reaction of them not winning gold in the 2004 Olympics, where it was just this absolutely stacked team and they end up coming away from Athens with a bronze, which was seen as a national disaster for basketball in the country. With like it was LeBron's first Olympics, for example. You'd Carmelo there, you'd Dwayne Wade, you'd Tim Duncan captaining that side. You'd Greg Popovich as assistant coach that year. So maybe there's a few scars from 04 lingering going into this year's Olympic Games. They're always one of the most fascinating watches. Timmy McCarthy will be commentating on TV, which will make them an even more essential watch over the next couple of weeks. And the fact that they've lost 2 out of their 3 warm-up games in the build-up to this just adds a little spiciness and adds a little bit of narrative before Tokyo.
Yeah, the Olympics we are staring down the barrel of the Olympics. Time to get excited for it.